And when you sink deep, breathing in ice, you feel the big sleep, the call of the night, but it's not time. So wake up and climb, yeah. The cost of survival is losing your edge, lost in revival, but back from the dead. The past and the future, they clash and collide, and chance will renew for the spy. Who survived? You survived.
All right. Hello, chat. Good to see you. Running just a little late today, but here I'm going to try to make it consistent and try to be more on time for the next week's stream. I hope you're having a good day. But today I'm planning on going over a large amount of the side characters within All American Red Squirrel. We're going to talk about some of her allies and the other heroes. Hello, the Holy Ninja. Good to see you. It's good evening. I hope you're doing well. All right. So how I have it planned out is that Mapleville is going to be very much kind of, and I'm aware the inspiration's on my sleeve, but All American Red Squirrel pulls heavy inspirations from the action cartoons I grew up with as a kid. So we got things like Powerpuff Girls, we got My Life as a Teenage Robot, Kim Possible. Specific, those ones specifically are the big pulls. We also got like a bunch of the DC animated universe stuff, because that's just some of the best writing and cartoons I think we'll ever see. And it's amazing just what they were able to do with those shows, especially the Batman shows. So I pull a lot of that real heavy. I pull on it really heavy into this, and what I want in my characters, what I want from them, and how that affects the setting itself. Because trying to make Mapleville feel like a real living place is always the biggest challenge it's a big challenge for any world building. And a large portion of that is the people who live in Mapleville. Especially the characters we get to follow around. So is there an incompetent mayor and his hot, competent secretary? I didn't pull that heavy. I think blatantly ripping off characters might be a little too far in the direction I wanted to go. Besides, we're talking about the heroes and allies. All politicians are villains. Let's be honest. So that's going to definitely be more like one of the. He's going to be, when we get to villains, probably maybe not like one of the main villains, but he's a hindrance. The mayor of Mapleville, he's going to be a hindrance for just about all the heroes, because bureaucracy. So I have here a list that I'm working on, and it's not quite done yet. not done yet, but this is going to be a complete and comprehensive list of all the characters. Um, all the characters in All American Red Squirrel. And this is mostly just for notes and quick references for me and Erie, the artist for the comic. This is everyone almost. There's about 2 missing names on here that I forgot to put in, and we'll get around to them. I'll bring them up. Of course, we start with All American Red Squirrel and the Grand British Grey Squirrel, but I talked a lot about them in the last episode. So we're going to actually move on to some other characters. And I guess we'll start with Father Bloodwater. I know the name is a little edgy. It might be a little edgier than I had actually wanted, but I think it fits into the idea of what I want with Father Bloodwater. So I want to touch on as many of the actual superhero tropes as possible, and a large portion of that is the paranormal. The gothic horror, werewolves, vampires, zombies, ghosts, ghouls, ghasts, wraiths, cryptics, all those sorts of things that you would love to see like your paranormal hunters go after. Your magicians, your Constantines, your Hellboys. This is what Father Bloodwater would be up to. So whenever All American Red Squirrel runs into something from beyond the veil, this is the character she would turn to for help and guidance. So Father Ernesto Locatelli, if I'm pronouncing that right. I've only seen it written down. I haven't heard it spoken. You doing okay over there, cat? You having fun playing in your tent? Cat's making a lot of noise in the background. Hopefully she's not too much of a bother. So he goes by the alias Father Bloodwater. He's a Catholic. He's a Catholic priest for the local church in Mapleville. Attends to all the duties and chores of that would come with that, giving confessions, having him give sermons, preaching. And a large portion of that is that I also, it's fueled as for a lot of things with All American Red Squirrel. It's just a basic contempt with how they treat it. And a big one is that pretty much all religion is treated as bad as long as it's not. Well, it's mostly just all major Christian religion is treated as it's bad and full of dumb people who are evil without redemption. Ironically, it's kind of the same thing that during the Satanic Panic that all the Christians claimed on all the other groups. It's kind of being thrown back on them now, and it's tiring. Apparently, I don't stand on this. It's like nobody likes this. Nobody likes being treated like this, and it's not fair to treat one particular group like this without major cause, especially because a lot of people throwing back them weren't treated like this by this usually. They just make this opinion because other people told them to on Twitter, and I'm tired of seeing the church be evil in all sorts of media. Catholics get the better treatment in comparison to the Protestants in media. Yeah, probably. Oh, great. The dogs above me are also active. So the cat's active and the dogs are active. I hope the noise isn't too much. I apologize to the chat and everybody on replay for it. So the Catholics get the better treatment. Probably. I know it's still not a lot because there's the whole pedophile jokes that get made, and some deserve, some not. I'm not going to get into huge debates on that. It's just like I'm seeing an issue and a problem that there's an obvious unfair treatment, and I want this classic Gothic storytelling where faith will win the day in the end. Faith and hope and the teachings and good, they win the day. That because why shouldn't the good guys win? I want my good guys to win. I want them to face great evil. I want them to face great odds, and I want them to come out at the end of it. Maybe not whole, but better. So it's kind of what we got for Father Bloodwater. And the idea with the name is that I wanted to really lean into the Christian attributes of this. So the thought process with this name is that the blood of Christ is the water of salvation, sort of imagery. So I called them blood water. That's really as deep as that goes. It might be I'm 14 and this is deep moment, but I like the name. And it gives them a little bit of that darker edge. Being a little edgy is cool. And as long as he's like doesn't lean into it too heavily, it would be fine. So we have him actually trained to hunt down, your gothic horrors, your werewolves. He hunts down vampires. He performs exorcists to cast demons out of people. Can hollow ground, create holy water, walk around with a cross and silver bullets, to let him loose upon the evils of the world, drive them back to the darkness of which they belong. There's that really cool imagery of like the cowboy pastor with a Bible in one hand and a 6-shooter in the other. that sort of imagery is kind of like what I want to go for. The if you ever seen Hellsing, Alexander Anderson absolutely is what I want. We have him as a retired at the age of 66. He's leaning more into his pastoral duties rather than his hunting duties. And I just wanted like an older. I'm fascinated by the idea of the old man in a young man's game mentality. Fear the old man where young men die young. Fear the old man in the profession where men die young, usually. Just because I think that instantly like just gives off the air of this is not somebody you want to mess around with. This is somebody you gotta take seriously. Place of origin, I wanted him from Vatican. I wanted that heavily tied in. He's here from Vatican City. He's an immigrant to America. He's settled down in Mapleville. He's hunted the evils that have plagued it, and now he's in his old age, and he's trying to help the people. And he'll be active a couple of times when Red Squirrel goes up against like your occasional. I mentioned him a lot, werewolves. And if you remember from last stream, I mentioned that the squirrels have an innate fear of dogs. So werewolves is going to be a big issue they have to deal with. They'll make great Halloween specials. As they deal with the paranormal. So that's our basic overview of Father Bloodwater. So we'll move on to Chief Byron B. Booth. He's the chief of police for Maplesville. Another older mentor type. And this is going to be fun because Chief Booth is absolutely in the camp that the Fantastic Fox Squirrel was a villain. He played us, he tricked us, and he tried to pull off one last scheme, and he finally got the better of him. And so we got this old cop that should have already retired, working to be cleaning the streets of all the criminal element, fighting off the gangs, the drug lords, the mafia families. And I'm pulling heavily from those old blaxploitation films when it comes to him, because there's just something innately cool about the protagonist of those. They're the the no nonsense, kick butt and take name types. Pardon me. You know, I come walking in, I got my badge hanging from a chain on my neck, and I got a wicked smile, the cool mustache. I think Erie has made mention to me in a conversation that she's basing the design a little bit off of Mr. T, which I'm like, that's perfect. Absolutely. I want the guy to be cool. The guy's cool. Like this is the dude. This is your guy. This is the guy who's not going to take any nonsense. He's going to go off the books a little bit to get the job done. And he's looking at all these heroes around him in these capes, masks, and tights, running around. And it's like, what are these hotshots and young folk doing? Like jumping around, flying about. They're shooting heat beams from their eyes and lightnings from their fingers. What happened to a good, honest, gritty cop on the beat with his partner in this side seat? Maybe K9 in the back, speeding down in a high-speed pursuit in their patrol car. You know, that sort of mentality. The 70s cop, the 70s action cop. He will pity the fool. Absolutely, he will pity the fool. Because the fool needs to be pitied. That's not going to stop you from beating the snot out of him. Absolutely not. No, the fool needs to learn a lesson. So I'm going to really like Chief Byron, because the immediate tension between him and Red Squirrel is going to be palpable. That this is going to be who Red Squirrel has to work the most with, because he's the chief of police. So she's the one that she's going to have to turn in all the criminals to, hand them over. Has to get the lecture of you're breaking your laws yourself with your vigilante antics. You're skirting on the wrong side of the law, Squirrel. One day you're going to meet that thug in the dark alley who's going to get the lucky shot on you, and then where are you going to be? You're going to be dead, Squirrel. Get out of the game while you can. sort of style. And she's going to be like, nah, I like the job. This is what I do. So it's going to be like, I love the immediate press between the two of the old grizzled cop and this young and chipper. It's the jaded veteran in the bright-eyed rookie routine. It really is. It's going to be great. These are like the practice interactions between the two characters have been a lot of fun to write. And then that stuff, you're never going to see that's never going to see the light of day, because that's just garbage stuff. There's nothing relevant on the plot. It's just to make sure the characters are actually talking the way they should when I'm writing stuff down. Warm ups. All right, so these next two here on the list, a Fantastic Fox Squirrel and American Phoenix. We're going to come back around to those two, because those are Red Squirrel's parents, and I want to save them for the end of this whole stream. End on the big ones. Now, this one's a personal favorite of mine. This is the shocking Taser. So with Taser, this is going to be our straight up vigilante taking on the gangs type. He's taking on the scum of villainy and putting them down hard and permanent if needed. And most likely it will be. So we got Jackson Johnson, the shocking Taser. The idea, Taser in the follow-up character are probably some of the oldest heroes I've had in my list. I just never been able to use for anything. And so getting to put them into All American Red Squirrel is a great release because I don't like having wasted potential just lying around in my folders. I want to use all the stuff I've been coming up with. And so Taser, I want to play with him with the morality of actually killing the foe, actually killing the super villain. He's not going to do it all the time. And the idea is that he doesn't always have the legal jurisdiction to do it. Like he is lawful good. I'd probably not say lawful good, more lawful neutral. Like he's a straight shooter. Almost like a stick up his butt sort of deal. He's going to be the dark and edgy. I come at you with righteous vengeance and bring the full force of the law upon you with this electrical power that he has arching off his body. And when coming up with this idea, originally it was just electricity that arced around his hands. So it's like electrifying punches and grabs and kicks, grapples, that sort of thing. And then I had the idea of like, what if it's just his whole skin just arches with the electrical power that comes off of him? And I thought about it, and it's like I never actually seen a hero, really any major like comic character with a vitiligo, that skin condition where it's you're basically start growing white patches on your skin, and it's usually caused by extreme stress or skin damage. I thought like this would be a kind of an interesting drawback from the power. So it's like his own power has caused such damage to his own skin. It's starting to cause vitiligo to actually appear. I thought it'd be something cool to add to his design, and it kind of like shows his actual work taking a toll on his body in a way that doesn't like require me to break bones or cut off limbs or any of the other typical ways to do it. I thought this would be a good way to kind of get around that and kind of show it off a bit. And the follow up with Taser, we have his sidekick, Pepper Spray. That sounds very cool. Yeah, I thought it did too. So Pepper Spray, it's a fun one. I had this idea for this acid spitting extreme sports style hero, riding around on skateboards and rollerblades and scooters, grinding off cars and jumping down staircases in these high-speed pursuits. The original Pepper Spray I had come up with and gotten art for, she was a little generic rollerblader. So that's going to have a little bit of fun to deal with. I also de-aged her quite a bit from her original one, because in the original stuff I had her in her like mid to early 20s. I thought if I de-aged her to being like a teenager, an actual 16-year-old, that would be a lot better for the sidekick role. So with the original Pepper Spray, when I had her started writing her up, she was going to be this shy, timid, kind of closed off from the world, but she really liked extreme sports. And that was kind of like where she opened up, and then she got her powers, and then teamed up with Taser, who kind of took her in as his protege to kind of show her the ropes. And then as I developed Taser more and made him this darker hero, Pepper Spray is going to kind of become more of his shining light. It's kind of like his grip on humanity now. So it's going to be a very father-daughter dynamic with their mentorship. Pepper Spray kind of depends on him to kind of show her the guidance so she doesn't just become a punk. Because she doesn't have much of a drive to be a hero. And if you don't have that drive to do good, you inevitably, the idea in comic book logic is that you inevitably become a villain. Very rarely do you have power and not use it for your own gain in some fashion or another if you don't have the moral fortitude to use it on the self-sacrifice of others. So this is Pepper Spray's character growth, is that she's learning to be she's she's learning responsibility. That's the idea. She's come to terms with the idea that I have these powers and I have a responsibility to use them wisely. And my powers are actually incredibly destructive. She spits acid. she, it's a very gross power. That was another idea when I had it. It's like I want this really. It's quite frankly, it's a really gross and just have to come from this. Just this pretty girl. We have your stereotypical kind of pretty girl. She's a little tomboyish, but she has just like one of the grossest powers. She like literally kind of just spits acid. I thought that was a funny I'm spacing on the word juxtaposition, and it's just a funny imagery, something to play around with a little bit. So we have the really cool guy in his like probably dark clothing, lots of blacks and dark blues with lightning coursing off of him, and then we got the bright and colorful sports girl right next to him. Kind of like how like they try to make the really dark armored Batman. I'm you know what? I'm just not even going to try to say the word. I am way too tongue tied to say it. Apparently, yeah, forget it. So it's like, where was my train of thought? It was the really dark Batman costumes, but then we have Robin, and he's still dressed in like the bright red and yellows and greens. And this is like, well, gee, I wonder which one's to target. Just that kind of imagery that really shines through, especially in like the later Silver Age and early Bronze Age stuff. After that, we have Cardinal Virtue. And this one is quite frankly shameless ripoff. He's our Paragon. And he's the last of the three old men. I'm liking to call them. We have Chief Booth, we have Father Bloodwater, and we have Cardinal Virtue. So Thomas Carter Sr. Flight, super strength, super speed. You've seen them all. You've seen them one, you've seen them all, basically. And it's not so much of what sort of powers he has, but what he represents. And I wanted to really lean into the cardinal virtues. Fortitude, the strength to keep going. I probably should have this at the ready just so I can have them at the justice to carry out the ability to carry out justice, the prudence to know when to do it, temperance to know how far to go, and fortitude to uphold it. So these four ideas is really the base of his character. And what makes Cardinal Virtue such an interesting character in this situation is that he is the hero who is both credited for pulling Fantastic Fox Squirrel out of his early life of crime, and he's also credited with being the one who killed him at the end of his life. So this is going to cause a lot of stress for Red Squirrel. Especially whenever it comes to cardinal virtues, like you are this supposed to be the greatest hero on earth right now. You're supposed to be the big one, the one we're all supposed to look up to. But you killed my daddy. You're so close. You might as well have been my uncle. Like, what happened? Why aren't you telling me the truth? What actually happened on that day? And Cardinal Virtue has reasons why he's not telling her exactly what happened. And I'm not going to go into those because that would be major, major spoilers for later, much, much later Red Squirrel stuff. Even though I'm pretty sure by the time we get to that, maybe like 4 or 5 years, nobody would actually remember. But I want to keep it tight-lipped for now. But Cardinal Virtue is he's our big hero. He's the one we're all supposed to be looking up to. And he has his own sidekick, the rookie, Thomas Carter Jr. And he is very much the same, the flight, the super strength, the super speed, except he's the younger version. And his big thing that he's dealing with is living in the shadow of his father. All the characters in some way or another have something to do with like Red Squirrel, specifically her relationship to her father, and mirroring it in some way. It's the major focus of the story, is the relationship between Red Squirrel and her father, and the importance of that relationship. So this is the mirror for this. Is like, this is what it could have been like. And how do you live up to the father's expectations? How do you surpass those expectations? How are you going to get out of that shadow? How do you make your own legacy? You having fun back there, cat? You being silly. And so that's Rookie's big deal. Rookie's also going to be the major love interest for Red Squirrel. I do want to tell the story of Red Squirrel's career pretty much from start to finish over the course of the comics. And I don't know if that's going to be like some 40 issues or if that's going to be like some 300 issues, but I plan on writing these stories for as long as I can, as long as they keep actually selling. I'll write them. And these are a bunch of the stories I have. And eventually Rookie and Red Squirrel will be probably a major love interest. Maybe not. Depends on how things end up working. So the point of the story is daddy issues. I wouldn't say that. So the point of the All-American Red Squirrel and what the whole idea of the story is that Red Squirrel has returned to Mapleville after being away for 10 years, training under another hero named Teddy Roosevelt. And why she was training under him is because he was handpicked by her father to train her in case anything ever happened to him. And something, of course, did happen to him. On the day Red Squirrel got her powers, her father got into this massive brawl at the agency building. So the agency building is this organization that's meant to help keep heroes funded. They provide them with money, living space, food arrangements, gear, medical help, provides defense on law when dealing with like the repercussions of being a superpowered vigilante. Gets them their jobs, assigns them missions as it sees. Some of them do. There are multiple different agencies, multiple different organizations kind of vying for power over all these characters and other heroes. But for whatever reason, the Fantastic Fox Squirrel decided, not to say decided, something happened that caused him to get into this massive brawl at the agency building. And he fought his way down 20 floors of heroes and agents, dying on the final floor to the apparent Cardinal Virtue. And the media, of course, ran with it. And the obvious propaganda is that he died trying to rob the agency in some way, some sort of heist, playing on Fox Squirrel's early career of being a villain, being a sort of just being a your common everyday thug and jewelry store robber, your your jewel thief. He never did anything incredibly like bad. He wasn't a murderer. He wasn't he wasn't an evil scheming mastermind. He was just, a kid out of his element with powers he didn't really understand, who eventually turned his life around and became one of the best heroes on the planet. I guess this could be a good point to talk about Fox Squirrel in American Phoenix. So the Fantastic Fox Squirrel, Archie O'Ryan. Like I said, he was just kind of when he was like 15 to like 18, he was running around, being a thuggish teenager, robbing up stores and stealing stuff. And he would have a couple of run-ins with a much younger Cardinal Virtue. And of course, they would fight, and he'd be one of Cardinal Virtue's minor villains during Cardinal Virtue's height of his career. But eventually, down the line, Cardinal Virtue eventually managed to talk some sense into him and said, "You could be doing so much more with your powers. You're choosing to rob secondhand jewelry stores, pawn shops, and liquor stores for a couple $100 cash at best, when you could be using your powers for something amazing." So Fox Squirrel eventually gave it a try, and he came to find that he much preferred the respect and the satisfaction of helping people. He turned his life around. He started to become a good person, helping old ladies across the street and saving cats from trees. And he's basically spent his whole life trying to get out of the shadow of, I messed up when I was younger, but I'm older now. I'm wiser now. I understand what I was doing was wrong. I wasn't really helping myself. I wasn't helping anyone, and I'm going to take the actions to correct it. And so that's what he did for the entirety of his life. And then for some reason, at the end of his life, he performs what is being seen as a great act of villainy. It's some heist of some sort that he tried to pull off that went wrong and caused him to have to fight his way through a number of heroes and agents. And he almost got away with it too, if it wasn't for Cardinal Virtue stepping in and arriving on the scene at the last second and presumably killing him. It's a very bizarre instance because it's a well-known documented fact that Cardinal Virtue doesn't kill. Proton Stalker, what I miss? I'm talking about a number of the heroes here in Mapleville, and I'm talking about Fox Squirrel now. Pretty much just rehashing like his story. So this is going to be like the major mystery that's going to be running through the comics is what exactly happened that day. What happened? Did Cardinal Virtue actually kill him? What was Fox Squirrel trying to steal something, if he was stealing something at all? Is the agency actually the good guys or the bad guys in this situation? Who's pulling the strings? Is there anybody pulling the strings? Was this a horrific misunderstanding of some sort and just got blown way out of proportion? The only things I will answer for certain that I'm not going to do, Fox Squirrel is dead and he's not coming back. We will never see Fox Squirrel come back from the dead. There's a hard, fast rule that I'm sticking with in the comics. I'm not going to fall into that trap of comics usually fall into of like the dead come back every other issue, it seems. We eventually get some magic amulet that brings them back from the dead, or an alternate universe version that's sort of the same. No, he's dead. He's done for. He ain't ever coming back. We might get flashbacks of him when he was alive, might see like footage of what he was like. Eventually, Red Squirrel will fight a villain named Hypnosis, who's going to plague her with the imagery of him. So that's pretty much the amount you're going to see of him. You're going to see almost like secondhand accounts of him. And the second is true, and I haven't talked about this character as much, of American Phoenix. This is Red Squirrel's mother. Now, it may seem odd to have this whole thing with the father be such a big issue, and then the Red Squirrel's mother is kind of shafted to the side, but the idea is that she didn't really know her. Red Squirrel's mother presumably died on the day she was born. So Red Squirrel, like all the major events in Red Squirrel's life, is usually marked by somebody dying. This is kind of the joke I'm beginning to notice. It's a really dark and morbid joke. It might be something actually worth looking into in future issues of the comics. I want to have to write that down. But American Phoenix. American Phoenix is Fox Squirrel's wife. She marries him. They have their daughter, Red Squirrel. And on the day that she, either like on the day or like right afterwards, she gave birth to her, Fox Squirrel, Cardinal Virtue, Taser, and a number of other heroes are fighting a villain I've called Plot Hole. And Plot Hole's big thing is that he's able to open up gaps in reality. He basically, anything that falls into the gap ceases to exist. They're no longer within time and space. So American Phoenix makes the tough choice that I need to get into the fight because it looks like they're about to lose. Cardinal Virtue is not able to get too close. Taser and Fox Squirrel are just way out of their element on this one. A number of the other heroes have already gotten sucked into these holes. So in comes the American Phoenix. She comes in last moment, provides the distraction needed for the day to be saved, but it ends up with her getting trapped in one of these holes, and that's that. She paid the ultimate sacrifice to stop a monster. So Fox Squirrel never kind of gets over that. Kind of like, survivor's guilt mentality. Maybe I could have done something more. When I get around to actually having that there, we'll see. Kitty Saurus, hello, good to see you. Good to meet you. Yeah, that's better. So we got these for our heroes, and the big thing with American Phoenix, I wanted a logical explanation of where Red Squirrel gets her powers, even if her parents don't actually have them. It's not so much important about where they got their powers, it's more I wanted to have that answer for Red Squirrel specifically. So Red Squirrel inherited her father's squirrel physiology, and she's inherited her mother's healing factor, even if it's not to the same extreme. To round out the list, we have Raging Rex, Ruki Suzuki from. This is probably one of the more silly ones. I wanted a magical girl with a dinosaur theme, so here she is. And what do the magical girls always fight? They always end up fighting some sort of spirit or some sort of alien. So we got the alien called the Gruesel, who are invading Earth slowly over time, and she is there to stop them. So she's going to team up with Red Squirrel whenever she's in Mapleville. and they hunt down aliens. That's going to be pretty much the gist of that. Raging Rex, her whole power is that she runs on rage, a very Hulk-like thing. Transforms, gets the power up, and then off she goes like a savage beast, tearing up all the things. And then we got, of course, every magical girl needs a magical companion, Archie. So we got Archie the Archaeopteryx. I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied. Hold on. So we got Archie the Archaeopteryx. So he's kind of got the source of all the powers, gets, the magical companion, friendly animal that's the source and mentor for the magical girl. As we work through all of these things, and so we get a nice deep dive into like the ancient civilizations that came pre-Earth, sci-fi elements fighting aliens that I'm going to heavily based off of 1950s sci-fi B horror schlock, and we're going to work through a whole lot of this stuff. It's going to be a massive overhaul. Not all these characters are going to appear right away. As we see, I got like a first appearance where I'm planning on using. So it's going to be like 25 issues in before we even get to Raging Rex. So a lot of the later hero characters that I'm talking about here, they have don't have as much details filled in about them because I'm still planning stuff off. That's way off ahead. Silent Steve, good to see you. Hello. And so we got all of this working for, and of course we got our main girl herself, the All-American Red Squirrel and the Grand British Gray Squirrel. And I'm going to talk a lot about Riley and Elizabeth as we're going through. So just to give those of you who might be new the basic rundown, the All-American Red Squirrel is going to be the comic series I produce where we're following the adventures of Riley Orion, the All-American Red Squirrel, as she returns from Mapleville after training for 10 years under the tutelage of Teddy Roosevelt. She's come back to her hometown, ready to take up her deceased father's mantle as the city's protector. And all the while, she's fighting off these over-the-top, colorful, and flamboyant villains, gaining help from potential allies, and we're going to be following and looking for the answers of what exactly happened that got her father killed. Did he actually die a villain, or was he a hero to the end? Why isn't the Grand British Gray Squirrel, her father's sidekick, actively helping Red Squirrel out in the open? Why is she sticking to the shadows? Did carnal virtue actually kill the Fox Squirrel? Or is he privy to information that we don't know yet? And if there is a cover-up going, what's happening? So lots of intrigue, lots of high action, heavily based and inspired by the action cartoons I grew up with, like Powerpuff Girls and Kim Possible, My Life as a Teenage Robot. I'm definitely pulling heavily from those. Got the use of comic book superheroes, Batman, Superman, especially a heavy inspiration from Spider-Man, especially with Red Squirrel's behavior. We plan on releasing a couple of these a year as we get better and understand the printing process better will be funding over on Fund My Comic. It's a lot of work to get into these things, and just coming up with the characters, coming up with the locations, coming up with the city. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm happy that you guys are taking a real interest in it. I don't have much longer. I got about 8 minutes left that I have available to stream to me. So if you guys have any sort of questions, go ahead, let me know. Has there been any of the characters that I've talked about today that you're particularly interested in? Is there any more information you're wanting to know? Maybe I'll let you get into a bit more, in a little more of the privy, let you be privy to a few more of the secrets and identities behind the mask and everything. And let's get some water real quick. Is there going to be a hero turn villain? That is a good question. What we're having done is that as the stories go on, it's kind of obvious that the Grand British Grey Squirrel is up to something. Her major motivation is that she is going to prove is that she has a particular grudge against Mapleville. She feels like the city itself has turned its back on her uncle, the fox squirrel. So she's kind of running this psyop. She's helping Red Squirrel bring down her villains from the shadows in the background. But all the while, she's kind of showing like the nastier side of the city, how the city is distrusting of Red Squirrel simply because of her father, how the city's really turned against what she views as its greatest hero. So seeing her start to walk down that path is going to be her major character arc. And whether or not she goes all the way down it or turns away it is what you're going to have to tune in to read. Now, as for an actual hero turn villain, we might. So the rookie is going to already have already has a girlfriend at the start of this whole series, and this is a girl named Felony. She's part of a duo act with her father, Misdemeanor. Felony is your typical smart scientist, builds the robots. She's got a degree in science. And it's that super science. Like you look at them, how they build this stuff, and it's like that would never work. Because you got to add in that cheese. So this is going to be more of a villain turning hero. Like she's pulling herself away from the villainy. So we got a bit more of that. But I'll absolutely look into making an actual hero turned villain. Because having the fallen hero arc is always a fun one to play with. Like you were supposed to be the chosen one, Anakin. Yeah, we'll absolutely start to look into that. And I'll get more into villains next week. For the Red Scroll Roundup number 3. We'll go more into the villains because there's a lot to talk about because there's going to be a lot more villains than there are heroes. And I probably won't even be able to get to all of them in one sitting. Even with a basic overview like this, where I'm just giving you the bare bones. You can do everything with a science degree. Yes, exactly the mindset. That's exactly how it goes down. What degree of science did you go into? Super science? I know biology, chemistry, advanced physics, quantum physics, theoretical physics, theoretical quantum physics, Scientology, cryptology, zoology. Yeah, I know all this stuff. I'm smart. That's why. I'm able to build a death ray out of a toaster and a toothbrush. String theory, theory on strings. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Exactly. Like I play up the charm, play up the. It's part of the fun, right? Oh, StreamYards looked like it lagged on me real hard there for a moment. Am I still here, chat? Hopefully, I'm still here. It looks like I'm still here. I got a degree in Unified Field, PhD in science. Hello, Kenneth Bird. Good to see you. Hi to everyone here tonight. You're just in time for us to tune out. We just went over all the heroes, and it's a wonderful ride. This is great to learn all. Great to just talk about this stuff because we're getting so close to actually getting kind of the stuff out here, and hopefully pretty soon we'll actually have actual pages that I can show off. Maybe here within hopefully a month or two, and I'll have more art to show off as Erie kind of has to. Erie is a very, very busy woman. Between not only does she doing the comics on this, she's also like making her own candles. She's souping up her own car. She's got her own part-time job that she's having to pull. She's making her own videos, which hopefully she has a new video out soon because she has a great channel. If you haven't seen her, Erie the Ghost. Probably drop a link here in the chat. But yeah, working with Erie has been a lot of fun on this. And I'm just having a just an outlet for actual superhero stories in these compressed style, not the decompressed. It takes 20 issues to tell a single story arc sort of deal. Here's her channel. There you go, Chad. Have fun with that. Go give her a subscribe and a like on her comments and comment on her videos and stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun working on this. It has been a lot of fun working on this, and it's been a nice, wonderful learning experience. And hopefully, it's just something that you guys enjoy and that you like. All right, but unfortunately, I am just about out of time. So I am going to have to unfortunately get off here. It's been wonderful to get to talk to you guys. I will be doing a Red Squirrel Roundup every Tuesday. Hopefully not this late again. Fingers crossed. I'm probably going to. I plan to try to do this at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll go for about an hour for each of those because I don't want to hold you guys up. And 1 hour seems like a pretty good stream just to talk. Because if you're talking nonstop like this, it starts to hurt the throat and the jaw. But it's a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy. And the goal is always to entertain and to make you smile. And what doesn't make you smile more than just a hopeful, bright, and optimistic superhero? I'm here to save the day. And no more of this dark, gritty, overdone, melodramatic, edgy. What if our heroes were actually the bad guys, but the bad guys are also bad guys? There's no more of that. We want heroes. We want people of virtue and valor and integrity. We want to see them deal with their flaws and try to come out at the end of the day a better person and save the day. It doesn't always have to be deep. Sometimes we just want to see Superman punch a giant robot. That's all we want. The fact that we haven't gotten that in live action yet is disappointing. Normalize having superheroes beat up giant robots. And yes, there will be giant robots in the story. Don't worry. We'll get around to that. It's probably issue number 6. All right, so I'm going to have to get off. This is fun. Thank you all for coming. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, share, click all the buttons, everybody. I'm Dr. Crow. I read a book once, and it's my goal to make you smile. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
But enough talk! It's mobbing time!